Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Basa here with Agile World. I am a dojo coach. I've been part of dojos for, I would say, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years, been part of agility for forever. And today's session will be talking about my journey in discovering dojos and why I have such a passion for dojos.
Welcome to Agile World. Hey, today I'm here with April Jefferson, Soul Crafts Woman, and she is out with her new puppy. She was showing us her new puppy earlier. And we're also here with a good friend of mine, someone who I have seen firsthand do some amazing things. We're gonna get to that. So April, what's going on? What's going on? It's February. What's happening?
Yeah, so I'm really excited to have Alex with us. We are Agile World, and Alex has been all over the world, and of course he's an Agilist, and we're looking to dive in on his experiences and where agility has shown up for him in his travels.
Alex Basa. So Alex Basa, where did you start your journey?
So I started my journey in Africa. and the reason I would say that is if any of you have ever lived in Africa or been to Africa, a lot of the culture is very simple. People are very friendly. People treat people as being people. And that's the one piece I miss. So if you're walking in the street, everybody says hi. Everybody's friendly. You don't know a single person, but everybody is very friendly.
So on the entire continent, Africa is friendly.
For the most part.
So were you like bouncing country hopping through the continent of Africa, or did you start off in a certain place? Like, were you born?
So I was born in Addis Ababa. So if you're familiar with sort of kingdoms, it was Emperor Haile Selassie who was ruling Ethiopia at that time. The Rastafarians call him Jah, right? So his family was all assassinated. The resistance took over and essentially killed the entire lineage of Haile Selassie. Now, there are some that managed to get out, but at that time, I was probably about 3 years old, and they hanged essentially the family on trees, on light posts, everywhere. So we had to keep our curtains shut. If you peeped out, you'd see bodies hanging. And so, of course, as a child, your parents are like, don't look out, don't look out. And when they leave the room, you look out. And that image still remains. Anyway, so we fled the country when Civil War broke out, and we went to Zambia. And if you, for those of you that aren't familiar with Zambia, Zambia is in Southern Africa. So you've got South Africa, Botswana, and then Zambia. So some of you have seen Victoria Falls, for example, on TV, that is in between Zambia, Botswana, and Zimbabwe. And so we were in Zambia for a little bit and then went to Botswana, which produces the most diamonds in the world. So you might know Botswana from that. And in Botswana is also where Prince Harry always goes on safari and made it famous. And so I did most of my elementary and middle and high school in Botswana. Then I traveled around the world, hanged out in Norway for a bit, and then came over here. So
sweet. So I wonder, because when I met you, you seemed very personable, and it was easy to see that you value people a little bit differently than many others. I mean, I've worked for a lot of government agencies, financial institutions, spent a lot of time in New York, DC, places like that, where people, definitely don't really care who you are. People don't say hi when you're walking down the street. But you did, and that So when did you discover, based on all of your fascination with people, when did you discover agility and this whole concept of the dojos?
Yeah, so my background's in software development. I used to be a coder. I developed different kinds of systems for the public institutions, private institutions. I worked primarily on an XP team. So I was an XP developer, went into Scrum and became a Scrum Master, and we rotated in and out. And that was probably my first exposure to agility, and that was probably about 18 years ago. Mm. So after that, I got into Scrum and Kanban, and this was in a small startup. But what I realized was I had a passion for helping teams and essentially people. And so once I, had gone through all that, I wanted to try and help people go through the same journey. So I started helping other areas do that. And as my experience journey went, I started experimenting in different frameworks, trying different things, just all with the end goal to help the team in whatever way they needed help. And then later on, I got involved in a Spotify transformation, and that was very interesting. We actually went from the beginning all the way to the end. And then after that, I challenged myself and went through a safe transformation. So, try something different, push the boundaries, and experience all the different aspects of different frameworks and transformations just to learn. Now with Dojos, the piece, I'll touch real quick with Dojos. Okay. The piece that's really attracted me to Dojos is because you are learning while doing. And one of the struggles I found as an Agile coach or helping enterprises is we do a lot of workshops to the masses. And a lot of people keep coming back. So you may help people, but now they've hit that edge case or they've found something else and they come back to your class again, or, and so I started questioning the effectiveness of sort of doing mass classroom learning. And so I thought, all right, for certain skills, you really need hands-on. And so for certain skills, I started focusing on Dojos because the most common feedback you get from a class is always, that's great and all, but it doesn't quite apply to my space. My space is a little different. And so now with the dojo, you're saying, it's okay, your place is different. I'm going to help you with all the constraints and pressures you are under. I'll be a member of your team and I will help you tackle these new skills and challenges as you work on your existing backlog. Mm.
So we're different as a coach. Every organization I've ever been in has always said we're different. Every team is we're different. So there's the fact of the matter is, with agility, it's interesting that those differences don't quite matter as much, maybe for them to apply practices. And I find like beauty in that. Maybe on the solutions that you're using for the customers and that type of thing, yeah, there's difference with that. People are different, their needs are different, but there's a lot of simple practices that are adaptable as well, that they can hold on to. What do you find is that people are to your style to connect people to get beyond we're different?
So I think the most important thing, regardless of what you're doing, is making a connection. And that's a piece I feel I found sort of agility through my experiences of all these different cultures and meeting people and connecting. And so I think the most important piece is to connect with people first and understand their situation, lead with empathy. and then figure out what helps them best. What is the thing they need, and not sort of come in with a cookie cutter approach. So the most important part is listening and understanding.
I can see how, I don't know, how many languages do you speak, Alex?
So I know a lot of very bad words in many African languages, as well as Norwegian and French. So
Because you've been everywhere, so I don't know.
I'll at least know if someone's saying bad things about me. Conversational, I'm hit or miss in different spaces.
I've been to about 30 different countries, and there's 2 words that are spoken in every country, and I'm not going to repeat them here.
Okay.
One starts
probably
with
words that would never grace my mouth, but okay.
One starts with F, and we did have one of our Canadian friends blurt out the F-bomb once. So that was kind of funny.
Well, you know.
Yeah, I love
we're not
the whole idea
policing
of
language.
I love the whole idea of connection, and it's interesting because April and we were just talking a couple days ago when we met with Sala. We were talking about the connection that we had at a conference in Baltimore, and April was just standing there, and I was just standing close to her, and we just connected. And I love the fact that you bring up connection with the teams and the people that you help, because agility is all about meeting our customers and providing value for our customers, value for our teams, value for everyone. And we can't do that without connection, because if you don't understand what your customers need, you can't give them a solution, right? And if you don't understand what your teams need, you can't help them achieve greater success or agility. So I love the whole concept that you bring to the table about connection. And I also want to pick out a word that you chose. You said you become a member of the team.
Yeah, so that's a key piece in being a dojo coach. So maybe I'll take a step back in case there's anyone listening who doesn't understand what a dojo is. So dojo, like many words in Agile, comes from Japanese. It's a Japanese word, and it means a place of the way. And so what typically happens in martial arts is someone goes to a dojo to learn a skill, and they learn a kata, right? And they learn that skill but through repetition. And they practice it so much that they don't have to think about their moves, because they've repeated that pattern over and over to the level that they can start creating new moves. So in a similar fashion, a dojo coach will go to a team. We are a member of the team. And the key piece there, to Steve's point, is by being a member, we're invested in them. We are feeling all the pressures. It's not, you guys do this, I'm over here. We're in it with them, right? So then we take them through different, find out what their top 4 challenges are. And in the case of the dojos I work with, I focus on what their top 4 challenges are that may be related to product. So it could be product roadmaps, visioning, strategy, whatever product, feature writing, anything like that. It could be related to Agile. Maybe they want to get better with better and more efficient using Scrum. Maybe they want to get better at building a cohesive team. Or it might be something related to technical. Maybe they want to build a better pipeline, a DevOps pipeline. Maybe they want to build better quality, or they have knowledge silos within the team and they want to break that up. So whatever their top 4 challenges are, I take them through an exercise where they list what those are, and then we tackle those top 4 challenges for 6 weeks. And we do that with the hope of solving those challenges while executing on their existing backlog. So this isn't a hypothetical class and scenarios. You're actually going to work on their existing work. Now the catch is there is a cost to learning, because the whole focus of a dojo is learning, learning new skills, learning while doing. And so typically, if you're working on a backlog, you throttle back a little bit, the whole slow down to speed up. And then you do that for 6 weeks. And then the true measure of success is actually after the dojo, when you do check-ins 30, 60, 90 days. Are those behaviors, practices, and techniques sticking? And that whole idea of skills sticking is what's measured on the success. So if it doesn't stick, then we'll go back to the drawing board. But so far, what I've experienced is the skills are sticking more than sort of the classroom learning type things, or those sort of one-off workshops. Even if it's a 1-week workshop, it's not long enough to repeat and build that muscle memory.
Do you have something you want to share about what you're learning by being a dojo coach?
I think I'm always learning new ways back to connecting with teams, because people are complicated and every dojo is always different. I can never say, that, I meet a team, oh yeah, it's going to go this way. No way. It's always different. The way I approach them and try to make the connection, sometimes I have to think of something new. The way somebody learns on the team, not everyone learns the same way. Pairing and mobbing might work for some people, not for others. I have to figure out how they learn and how to meet them where they're at to help them learn. Mm-hmm. So I like that sort of that discovery. You're constantly discovering new ways of connecting and learning.
Yeah, I've coached other team coaches, and then they're like, oh, new team, and they're telling me like, oh, these problems. I said, hey, remember when? Like, it's a new thing, new people. You got to start from scratch, and that's the beauty of it. So it's not gonna be boilerplate. As we kick off additional teams, they're like, oh, the other team, like, we gel so much and it's so great. And I'm like, yeah, but you got new people. Yeah. It started all over. There's beauty
new
in
people and new baggage. And
yeah, the other piece that doesn't necessarily get talked a lot by dojo coaches is, since you're working so closely with the team, a lot of times the pressures and the problems they're facing are from external, are outside of the team. And so that's when you kind of have to put on that coach hat and go and work with those spaces to help them work better with the team. So it doesn't mean that you're just doing only team type activities. You actually do go out and try to do whatever you can to help the team.
Now, this is just such an amazing concept, because it is so different than companies that go in and say, okay, you're going to go work with this, do this, do this, do this, do this, and it's all cookie cutter. Now there's two questions that are coming up in my mind, but I'm going to ask the first one. Alex, this takes a lot of bravery. You are walking into a different situation each time.
Yeah, I think one thing that you have to have is confidence in your ability to learn. Because a lot of times, especially if you're creating a new capability at a company, it's high stakes. The company isn't sure they want to invest in this new thing. So they may give you low-hanging fruit, or they might give you the hottest thing on the fire, right? As a coach, I like to pick something visible, not low-hanging fruit, because it'll make a bigger impact, which then, of course, raises the stakes. Now, if this highly visible thing fails, well, now what, right? So there is a little bit of pressure on yourself, but I think you have to trust in what you've been through, your experience, and just, take it day by day. And I think, eventually people will see value in it. And the other piece I always look at that's also a little different with the dojo is a lot of times as an Agile coach, when you help different spaces, not everybody uses coaching agreements. And so a lot of spaces always say, well, what value did this coach provide? They're not quite sure. Was it just training? Was it, it's always up in the air. With the dojo, when you figure out what those top 4 challenges are, you want to tie them to business outcomes or business metrics. And then you start moving and helping solve those challenges. So at the end of it, you actually have something you can say, you know what, here are some challenges we solved during this time frame, and this is the value of them. And you've got that alignment, you've got the buy-in. And a lot of times telling the value story, I leave that up to the places I'm helping. I don't tell the value story, right? And a lot of times as an Agile coach, when you're helping different spaces and you're spread so thin, you're telling the value story, and it's a little different from the space you're helping. And they're like, oh, I don't know about that, right? So
It's beautiful when it comes from them. Like I've had clients call me, down the road and just saying like, this is the impact you had, and even told me like financial numbers. I'm like, wow, you help me say this? Can I get a piece of that? You help me save these millions of dollars. I'm like, oh, you can break me off a chunk of your savings if you want. But have you had any of that where people came back and they're sharing that? I think it's an awesome feeling. But.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. That's kind of what gets me up every week.
Yeah.
And if I think of my last dojo, it was a situation where the tech lead, there was a lot of pressure on the tech lead to make all the decisions for the team. At the end of the dojo, the tech lead reached out and said, "Thank you for giving my life back."
Oh, wow.
So
yes.
Because the team was making the decisions.
Yeah.
It sounds like that's awesome.
I know.
That is awesome. And I guess the question which I didn't make clear in my previous statement. So how did you get past that fear of walking into a new team and say, whatever the issues are, I'm going to help you tackle them, even if because it may not be things that you're as familiar with as some of the others.
Yeah, I think being open and transparent and honest. I try to be as honest with the teams on things I know. I don't sort of fake it till I make it. I'll tell them, you know what, you need help with this thing. I may not know, this is what I know about this space, but let me go and find someone who can come help us, who might know a little more. So you need to realize that, you know what, you may not know everything, and it's okay to step back in certain cases and let someone who can help the team better in that area do so. And if things aren't working, be as open and honest. I will tell people, I'll be the first to tell them if something is not working. They have to realize you're on their side.
And it's teaching them, which I like to say is teaching them how to navigate this on their own. So when they walk away, it's sustainable. It's like, oh, we don't know how to do something. Oh, these are the steps that we can take to figure it out, right? On our own, to solve our own, instead of, oh, we're just blocked. We can unblock it ourselves.
Yeah,
we're blocked. It's their fault.
Actually, speaking of the blocking and unblocking, what I've also realized is, especially in large corporations, not a lot of innovation happens on the team because of situations. It might be cultural, where there's a fear of safety, and so everyone's taking the easy route. It might be because they're process heavy and they just don't have a lot of spare time to innovate. And so with the dojo, innovation is a core part of it. We bake it into everything we do, so that whatever new ideas, we run experiments every single week during the 6-week time frame, so that the team sort of gets out of the box and is used to trying something new, to your point. So when they encounter a challenge, they can just think of something else.
Yeah. And also that you're giving them the gift of having virgin eyes again. Because when they first got there, they saw the things, and then they got institutionalized to just being okay with issues, and not like, oh, this is just the way it is here. And you're
that's a piece you're fighting,
and then moving, then rethinking, like, no, that's not okay. Like, let's just be, that there's no, that's just the way it is. We don't, like, that's not a barrier. We change the system. You have the power to do that.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of teams realize the power they have.
Yeah.
And a lot of the issues on that's the way it is around here, they can actually make little steps to change, but
Mhm.
they've been beaten down so much that they don't try.
Right, right.
Well, they've kind of gotten permission by launching a dojo. So the organization has said, you guys now have permission. Alex is going to come in there. He's going to help you. You can now run experiments every week. But there's also as you're doing that, there's probably going to be a downturn in productivity for those first 6 weeks, right? Because you're learning new things, you're doing new things. You're probably going to fail. If you don't fail at least once, you're probably not learning as
Yeah.
fast as you can. So how do you get past that barrier? And what would you tell leadership of this is what's going to happen and this is the big outcome, but don't look for it in the first four to 6 weeks. Look for it 6 months or 3 months, 6 months down the road.
Yeah, it's the whole cost on the team is always the top leadership question. You know, my team's got these deliverables, they can't miss them or whatever. And I've done dojos with teams with dates. That is okay. What I pretty much say is, all right, we're gonna look at the scope and see which pieces of these deliverables we can apply our learnings and our challenges to. And we'll throttle and adjust the dojo, but we are going to be learning. We're not going to stop learning just to hit this deliverable. And so you really have to get buy-in, and buy-in from higher than middle management. So I usually go higher than middle management, get buy-in on those outcomes, and get buy-in on how I will engage those levels of leadership throughout the process and my ask of them and how they will interact with the dojo.
Yeah. I've definitely found that sometimes it's a false sense of productivity, and that that they weren't actually doing what they thought they were doing that month. It's just really fear. And then by them slowing down, you're able to get rid of a lot of the chaos, and they've learned to work together collaboratively and deliver value sooner together. And that's just my experience.
No, you're right. A lot of
It
places
was
get
just
in that.
it was fake productivity, right?
They're in the feature factory mode, right? And you know, a big piece of when you build out those challenges is you have to go to the customer or business partner to help you carve out those challenges. And a lot of times spaces that are in reaction mode never quite align to what the big picture is or the big goal. And so it's important to align, revisit the vision of the product and realign to sort of the business goals and make sure you're all aiming towards that. Because another thing that we don't always check is we have different measures of metrics where we might say, you know what, hey, look at the cycle time. Oh, it's better. Look at these pieces of agile type or lean metrics. But we never go back to the business side and say, well, what metrics do you look at? When we make an improvement over here, what metric on your dashboard is actually going to change? So you really have to target some of those business metrics that aren't quite visible.
Which is very, very challenging. And I think that's one of the things that DevOps became very popular very quickly because, and I think one of the reasons is because you could measure it so quickly. You could measure improvements instantly. And with product management or making sure you're satisfying the customer, that can come much later. That often comes after you've released the product and after the product is being used for a while before the customer really embraces it. And so it's much more difficult to understand what the value is. And I think a lot of people have shied away from it because of that. So I think it does take a lot of courage and bravery to focus on what is the value and to move teams away from being fully utilized to providing value. Fully utilized teams are just responding to change. They're busy all the time. They're not thinking, they're not innovating, and they're not solving problems. So they need a little breath, as April was saying. They need to take a break and focus on what's valuable. So that's a fabulous conversation. That's a fabulous way to take it, I think.
Yeah, another one that we usually end up tackling, and I don't know of any dojo that I haven't done that, is you're looking at the relationships between the team, the product management, and the end user and the stakeholders. Is there a level of trust between them? And to your point of, is that end user or business unit used to receiving working software on a regular basis? Or do they like it every quarter or every so many months? And a lot of times when they are left out and it's a matter of doing all this work with fewer deliveries and feedback, then it becomes a challenge. And so sometimes as a dojo coach, I have to go in and sort of mend those relationships and try to help sort of those spaces work with the team and attend team events like our sprint review or and give regular feedback and start thinking in small chunks.
The last waterfall project I worked on, and it was a conscious decision. I said, I'm not going to do it anymore. I was brought in on the 15th month of an 18-month project, and we delivered everything within those final 3 months, but the customers hated it. And the reason they hated it is they hated not knowing what was happening for 18 months or for 16 months. I finally gave them a demo 16 months in, but they were pretty frustrated by then. And they really hated the process. So it didn't really matter what we delivered, and because they just weren't involved. So there was no trust. So if you walked into an organization, what are some of and you see this lack of trust, what are some of the recommendations you'd do? Or some of the advice you'd give to help form that trust between the two groups?
I usually just start by asking a bunch of questions to pressure test where they are with that trust. Is it just with one group? Is it all around? Is it with certain products that are high visibility? Or is it across the board? And then I'll kind of talk to the teams and the spaces involved to see if, what their feelings are and relationship is like, what that connection's like. And what usually happens is most areas do want to communicate, right? There's some kind of enterprise barrier that's keeping them from it. Sometimes it's something like, you know what, let's get our IT house in order before we involve the business, right? That's a common one. But if you don't bring the business on the same journey, then you end up at different levels and it makes it hard to make that connection. So everybody needs to be part of that journey. And sometimes if those relationships are strained, we have to be very brave. A lot of times I ask myself, what is that hill I die on? And in certain times, if I can see a lot of pain caused by the team, I'll say, all right, this is it. We're all going to go talk and solve this relationship.
One of my favorite success stories was I was working for a company. We were doing an Agile COP every week. We did this for half a year, and it was a struggle to come up with new topics every week, but we did. And we were doing testing one week. We were talking about testing, and 5 people showed up that I hadn't seen before, and they showed up a few minutes late. So we were in the conversation, and as we were going on, I finally just stopped everybody and asked for an introduction. And they introduced themselves. They were from the business. They were project managers from the business side, but never said technology. They're like, we're saying the same thing about testing. You guys don't know how we use the software. And the testers were saying, we don't know how the customers are using the software. So they suddenly said, oh, we have the same problem. We have the same goal. And a couple of weeks later, I actually saw some of them having lunch together. Some of the testers in the business, they were having lunch. They were hanging out just naturally. It was beautiful. So the trust, just the barriers between the trust just disappeared once they realized they had the same goals.
Yeah, and hopefully they move to maybe a place of closer toward like a full team instead of being outside the team, like over the wall, and having that closer relationship. And that's another reason why dojos work so effectively, because if you have all the people you need to be successful.
And it's really powerful when you can do a sprint review and show the software or whatever you're building at where the business partners are actually part of the demo. They're demoing in this situation with their data and their, as they would use it. And it's seamless with the team. They're all one.
Yeah, it's beautiful. To me, a lot of times I've always tried to get back to my first team, which was an XP team. And it was beautiful. Like, hey, our reviews were with actual customers. Not business people, because we're working with the team. It's like, oh, we're doing this. We're demoing to the customers. They're coming in and like checking out what we develop and saying, yeah, I like this. How about this? And so it's a demo and review, true demo and reviews versus what a lot of times what we see right now.
Nice. Well, who better to judge the value than the customers, right?
Yeah, I don't know where things flipped, but it seems like in the past companies were more trusting of their teams to interact directly with their end users and customers. And I guess some people get burned, and then this wall comes up of, oh no, we need to make sure we're ready to present, and it needs to be done this way for the customer. And now more walls keep coming up, and it becomes more difficult to just go and talk to them. So
yeah.
Is that because of the different types of companies you've worked with?
It could be, or it might be, the mindset of leadership. The whole notion of when you fail fast and fail to learn. So if for example, you're in a fixed mindset and you failed, you probably won't try it again, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it goes back to, it's not really up to date with times when you're thinking about like apps and things, and how there's persistent updates, that the days where you're taking years to release the next thing is that people don't want that anymore.
Yeah,
they want you to fix things perpetually. They want new features perpetually, not one big bang release. No one cares about that.
Instant gratification, right now. Give it to me now.
Give it to me now. I don't care about the hoopla around a big reveal. Just make it work.
Exactly. Just solve my problem. So Alex, we've been talking for about 30 minutes now. And so I got to ask, because we started talking about all the different countries you lived in and the different places you've been. Do you have a favorite city?
So my heart, and I still miss it, is the capital of Botswana. It's called Gaborone.
And what was it about the capital about Botswana that you loved the most?
The part I miss about Botswana is it's a very flat country. So the sunset and the sunrise take forever. And that's my peaceful time. And then you have a lot of animals there. So it's, if you think of a country the size of Texas or France with about 2 million people and about 3.5 to 4 million cows, there are more cows than people there, right? So the whole country is divided up into game reserves. And so you can just drive out, I don't know, 40 minutes and hang out with some animals. So I love that peaceful part of it.
Alex, I could tell you this. You did bring me to a place as you described it. I went there with you, and I felt peace. So thank you for that little gift.
I started seeing the sunset too.
Well, we don't like to end without you sharing a little nugget. Like, what insights did you have from this conversation today?
The insight is when I hear all your comments with what I'm saying is we're all tackling the same problems, right?
But my problems are different.
And we're all taking unique approaches to those.
That won't work here.
Funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just don't understand my problems. You just don't understand.
Yeah,
This is
those
the
are
way it is.
Oh, and we don't like to leave. For me, my request is like, what's your heart song, Alex? Could you share with us?
oh goodness. I don't know if I have one. I flip-flop a lot.
That's okay. It's like
So
it changes. What is it? What is it right now? Or maybe one in the past.
uh I would say right now the one, just because it's fresh, is old school hip hop, just because of that halftime show. It just brings me joy because I remember what I was doing at that time.
Hilarious. I just had a half an hour conversation with my friend in London this morning. We were going down old school hip hop. You know, I wasn't like into like necessarily the rap that was in the halftime show, but we shared some of the like songs that we listened to in our youth that even went down to like Heavy D and the Boys
Oh yeah.
and you know,
Yeah, the interesting
Guy.
part is all that stuff, old school hip hop, was all over the world. I mean, at that time I was in Africa, and it's still big stuff over there.
Yeah, yeah. What was big in Africa?
MED was great. It was huge there. You know, the whole Run DMC, LL Cool J time.
Yeah, yeah.
That was all big, and then yeah.
Now was it about a decade behind? Because I know there's certain countries I've visited, and it always seems like the popular music is about a decade or two behind what was popular in the U.S.
No, I think they're fairly current. The only difference I would say is there were some European artists that never got famous over here that became huge over there. And so you got that kind of thing. And then you have different African artists that are huge in different parts of Africa. And so you have a whole bunch of different sort of music genres. Reggae is huge over there too.
Mhm.
And
You
so
have
it's
a
always
few?
interesting when bands visit. They might be low key. I remember when Elton John came, he was huge, but you know, he was still a superstar, but he could hang out at the bar at the pool and not be swarmed by people. You could actually just go walk and talk to him. You know,
Cool.
Paul Simon was huge over there at that time, and so yeah, different musicians would pop up.
Yeah,
The only famous one I met, I think he was still really early in his career, was Norman Cook, Fat Boy Slim. He was probably, I don't know, maybe 18 or 19 when he went over there with the group he was with at that time was Beats International. And so he was this young kid, and I was in high school too, and we'd just sit on the grass and chat. And then he became this big new star. I just knew him as a drummer. So.
Very cool. Does he remember your chats? Does he remember you?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't reached out to any of them.
He's probably telling stories about that right now. Like,
Hanging out with Alex.
you never know.
I know I'm always going to be thinking about the stories I've shared with Alex. So I'm sure others will as well. So, all right. So any final words of wisdom before we end, Alex?
Yeah, so I'm hoping this podcast will inspire people to think about starting up more dojos. And if you are thinking about starting a dojo, feel free to reach out to me. Or there's also a dojo consortium that meets every 2 weeks. And there's something, I think we're up to 32 or 34 companies in North America that are formally running dojos in a sense. And all the dojos coaches get together every 2 weeks. So you can certainly be part of that. And you know, it's something I think going on right now with the whole great resignation. Everybody's wanting talent. Everybody's wanting to upskill. And the biggest problems happening right now is most of the options offered to people are things like self-learning or certifications. And I think the dojo takes a different route. And so I would ask everyone who's listening to think about how they learn in their organization, and are those options given to them effective? And if they're not effective, maybe try a dojo. So we'll see. I have a talk I submitted for Agile 2022 on this exact topic, and I hope it gets chosen, but we'll see. If it is, please attend that.
Okay. Well, in the meantime, people can go to dojoconsortium.org and they can reach out to you. How would they find Alex Basa? On LinkedIn? Is that the best way?
LinkedIn is probably the easiest way.
Okay. And you won't get upset if somebody says, hey, we heard about you. We wanted to say hi.
Happy to connect.
Sounds good. You haven't bitten anybody lately. I love that.
Yeah.
All right. So all of the information will be in the show notes. We'll have the links, but you can reach out to Alex Basa, B-A-S-A, on LinkedIn. He is very friendly. He is wonderful, as you can tell. And also the dojoconsortium.org. If you just go into Google and type in Dojo Consortium, you'll find that too. All of that will be in the show notes. Please, if you enjoyed this podcast, do us a favor. Think about subscribing. We'd really appreciate it. It helps us stay motivated, and helps us get guests like Alex when he sees that we have subscribers that want to pay attention. So we really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. April, any final words? Or just bye-bye?
My final words is that applied learning works, and that's what a dojo is.
There you go. Hands-on. Hands-on beats talking. Anyway, thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Yay.